Hey everybody, I'm back here in the garage today with my classic Toyota turbo pickup. This time we're going to be tracking down that oil leak I've been talking about. It has grown to be not just a leak, but more of a gush. I mean, we are leaving a significant amount of oil on the ground every time it shuts off. And I think I've narrowed it down to the front main seal and the timing cover. Both those items look really damp. There's a secondary issue going on though, and there's a loud clicky clackety noise coming from the engine whenever the revs drop. Did a little bit of research and found out that that noise is actually caused by the timing chain guides. I have a feeling this truck was fitted with the original plastic style guides that crack over time. So we're gonna get in there, replace those guides with something heavier duty, which hopefully will make this truck last for a long time to come. So nothing more to talk about, let's get down to it. Okay, so I finally got all the components that I needed to get out of the way to get to the timing chain, and now that I'm in there, I see that this was all worthwhile because the timing chain bracket, which is made of plastic, had broken here at the top mounting bolt. So if we take a look at this, you can kind of see how this moves around. Well, that's because the top mounting bolt here is broken. Now that's not a good thing. See down in there how it moves. There's a lot of slack in the chain. And when I took off the oil pan, there was actually a lot of plastic debris collecting there at the bottom. So I'm glad I took out the oil pan because you don't want that debris getting stuck to the oil pickup tube strainer screen. So anyway, I've got new timing chain components that include metal guides that won't wear out, a new timing chain tensioner, a new chain, new sprockets, a new timing chain cover, a new water pump, a new oil pump. Granted, a lot of these components probably weren't really worn out, but they came with the kit, so we might as well just throw them in. So let's get to it. Now before I go and reassemble everything, I'd like to show you the difference between the old timing chain guide and the new timing chain guide. Now looking here, we can see that this old timing chain guide is made of plastic, and it is broken here at one of the mounting bolt locations, and it also is broken here at the top. Now the equivalent timing chain guide, it's a new style, it's steel backed and has a rubber slider where the timing chain actually rides against. And this basically can't fail, or not fail within the life of the engine, that is. So we're going to throw this back in there, and hopefully the engine will run a lot quieter, and it will run quieter for the foreseeable future. And then we have the new timing chain here, which it looks pretty high quality, and some new sprockets here. Each one of these has the locating marker on them, so you know where to put the timing chain link. You match the discolored timing chain link up with each one of those little markers on each one of these sprockets. That way you know you have the timing chain in the right orientation. And also the kit came with a new timing chain tensioner, which looks identical to the one I pulled out, just new. These timing chain tensioners are actuated by the oil pressure of the engine. The oil goes in through here and it puts the pressure on the chain, make sure the chain doesn't hop a tooth or anything like that. So that's just a quick overview of the parts we have here that are about to go back in the engine. Hopefully once we get this thing outside of the vehicle, we can now identify what was actually leaking. So there were two things actually leaking here. One was an oil leak coming from the front main seal, and the second one was actually a coolant leak coming from the water pump. So let's take a look at the parts here. Okay, so what we have here is the front timing cover, the oil pump, and the water pump. It all mounts to the timing cover right here. So if we see right here is the front main seal on the oil pump, and you can see how much gunk is around there, and that's a total sign that this was leaking. Now if we take a look inside this oil pump, this is a pretty awesome piece of kit right here. It's really cool. Precision piece. There was no real sign that anything was wrong with this oil pump, but the front main seal was definitely leaking. I got a new one, so I went ahead and put that in there. Now, behind the oil pump is this oddly shaped O-ring. Now, I'm not fully confident that this wasn't leaking either because it doesn't feel like rubber anymore. It's pretty much plastic now. But I think the main leak was actually from the water pump. This is the water pump. It mounts to the timing cover, and there is this weep hole down here. And look how much residue is collected underneath that weep hole. So what was happening, more than likely, was we were getting some coolant leaking from this water pump, and then it was hitting some oil residue, and on its way down the engine, it just looked generally like oil leaking and made a huge, huge mess. So thankfully, we've got a new water pump in the truck, we've got a new timing cover, we've got a new oil pump, and all new gaskets and seals. So this thing should be sealed up for a long time to come. Okay, after what has seemed like an eternity, I finally have this engine all put back together. We have a new timing chain guides, tensioner, water pump, the whole works. This thing, it looks pretty on the surface. Now let's start it up and see how she runs. Go. Starts up. Now you can see that is ticking over quite nicely now. There's no more of the nasty rattle when the RPMs start to decline that there was before, and that was because the timing chain was slapping in there. The guides were broken, so now those guides are in place and everything's good. Now granted, these aren't the quietest or smoothest engines ever created, but this one's running a significant amount better now. As you can see down in there, everything's looking good. I don't see any oil leaks, I don't see any coolant leaks, so that is a good start indeed. So what do you say we take this thing for a test drive? Cabins are very small on these trucks. Not a lot of room for activities, but they're so simple, they're so awesome to drive, they feel so lightweight. It makes them such an interesting truck to drive, particularly. A simple dashboard, analog clocks, the party trick of this truck, a little turbo light that comes on when you get in the boost. We'll take a look at that as we get going here. So, let's set off. These things are so compact compared to trucks today. With this camper shell on the back, it makes it a little hard to see backing up, especially when the lights start going down, but it's not a big deal. Just do a short little drive so you guys get kind of an idea of what it's like to drive one of these old little things. So let's watch the turbo light on the dashboard. Up when you get in the boost. It's such a funny little thing. It's so simple, but it really makes the driving experience. Very direct gearbox feel. It's no sports car. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit to make it to go into second gear, but not a big deal. It's a truck after all. It's not a sports car. Pretty basic HVAC controls there. This one does have air conditioning. I don't think it actually works. I tried turning it on and it didn't seem like the air coming out got much cooler. Granted, it's not exactly warm outside to really prove it, but I don't know. I don't think it works. And of course, this system uses an R12 refrigerant, which is nearly impossible to find nowadays. So I'm probably going to have to switch over to R134A, but that will be a future project. I'm just happy this thing's running as well as it is. Let's get out of the neighborhoods and get onto a street where we can actually shift through all the gears here. 4-cylinder engine. It's not exactly a torque monster down low, but it gets going just fine. It's about 3,000 RPM where you start to see that turbo power come in. You see that light up there? That's third gear, 45 miles an hour, shifting into fourth to calm down the RPMs. But this engine actually makes really good power. I've driven the V6 that was offered in these in the final year, 1988, and this engine makes a lot more usable power, I would say. Those V6 engines, the 3VZE offered by Toyota, makes all their power at the top end, which isn't great for a truck. It's a decent thing for a car, even a sports car, but for a truck, you want your power down low. That's where you need it when you're hauling weight. So this engine actually makes more sense than a larger engine like the V6, because it starts to punch right there at 3,000 RPM. 5-speed manual transmission, of course. It just drives really smoothly. Honestly, you'd never know this truck at 265,000 miles, and it just goes to prove that when the previous owner takes care of it, it'll last forever. You just need to do some little bit of maintenance, like on these particular engines, replace the timing chains and switch out the seals, and you might have a really long-lasting truck on your hands. Just impressed by the lack of noise this engine now makes. It makes a fun little turbo noise, but no more of that clickety-clack sound from the worn-out timing chain guides. That's exactly what we were hoping for. So, a weekend's worth of work, a few $100s, and what do you know? The thing is ready to rock for a long time to come. So anyway, just a brief test drive to make sure everything's working okay, and I think we did it. Everything seems to be tight as a drum, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so there we have it. Truck's running really good now, and I'm really happy that everything ended up okay. I was kind of getting into some uncharted territory right there, placing that timing chain. Never worked on one of these engines before, but actually it took some time, but it was really a pretty straightforward job. So now I can just drive this thing. I really hope it remains Toyota reliable. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.